Rain fell softly over the dark streets of New Vega Colony, washing away the dust of machines and the smell of oil. Neon lights blinked from broken signs, painting the puddles with red and blue reflections. It was late night and most people were already hiding in their warm homes. But one man still walked through the empty road, Elias Ward, a tired human engineer returning from the power plant. His jacket was soaked, his boots heavy, and his eyes dull from exhaustion. He just wanted to reach home, eat something, and sleep. But tonight was not an ordinary night. As he passed through a narrow alley, he heard it, a small trembling voice. "Please, can I stay with you?" Elias stopped. His heart skipped a beat. He turned his head, but the alley was almost dark. Only a flickering neon light from a sign above showed the wet brick walls. "Who's there?" he asked. There was silence for a moment, then a weak sound, a sob. A small figure stepped out from the shadows. It was a little alien girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old. Her skin had a soft bluish glow, her eyes bright like tiny moons. She was shaking, wearing torn clothes and clutching a dirty blanket. "My mother died today," she whispered. Her voice was small, but the pain in it was real. "I have nowhere to go." Elias stared, not knowing what to say. He looked around. The streets were empty, but in the distance he heard the faint hum of patrol drones. Taking in an alien child without permission was illegal on this planet. Many aliens here were treated as lower-class beings or refugees. Still, he couldn't leave her there. He knelt down slowly. "Hey, what's your name?" "Leary," she said, her voice trembling. Elias saw blood on her arm, a small cut glowing faintly blue. "You're hurt," he said gently. "Come with me, okay? I'll clean it up." She hesitated. "You won't sell me?" The question hit him hard. He shook his head. "No, never," he offered his hand. She looked at it for a long moment before taking it carefully. Her fingers were cold and thin like glass. They walked quickly through the rain. Elias's apartment was small, one room above a repair shop. Inside, it was warm and smelled of metal and soup. Leary stood near the door, looking around with wide eyes. "You can sit," he said. She sat slowly, still holding her blanket. He made her some hot broth and brought a first aid kit. As he cleaned her wound, she watched him silently. The cut closed faster than he expected, her alien biology healing quickly. "You don't talk much," he said softly. Leary looked at the floor. "Talking gets you noticed. Notice gets you taken." Elias frowned. "Taken by who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you for not walking away." For a moment, the room was quiet except for the sound of rain. Elias looked at the little girl sitting on his couch, small, fragile, yet something about her felt strange. Her eyes carried an old sadness, like she had seen too much already. Then suddenly a faint beep came from somewhere. Leary froze. Her hand moved to her neck. Under her skin, something glowed faintly red. Elias leaned closer. "What's that?" "A tracker," she said in a frightened voice. "They put it there when they took us from home." He stared in shock. "Who put it there?" "The Dominion soldiers," she whispered. "They said my mother was a traitor. They were going to sell me next." Elias's heart pounded. He knew what that meant. Bounty hunters, slave traders, the black markets that used alien children for research or labor. If that tracker was active, someone already knew where she was. He grabbed his toolkit and turned on the small lamp. "Stay still," he said quickly. "I'll get it out." Leary nodded, tears forming in her glowing eyes. Her small hands gripped the edge of the chair. Elias worked carefully with his laser tool, sweat forming on his forehead. One wrong move could hurt her. Finally, with a sharp spark, the small metal chip came loose. He dropped it into a tin cup. The device blinked once, then began flashing faster. "It's sending a signal," Elias said, her eyes widened. "They'll come." He grabbed the cup, ran to the window, and threw it out into the rain. The tracker landed in a gutter and vanished down the street. He turned back to her. "They'll track it far away. But we need to be ready." The sound of distant engines grew louder. Hoverbikes, several of them, moving through the streets. Red lights flashed on the walls outside. Leary hid behind the couch, breathing fast. Elias turned off the lights and crouched near the window. Drones hovered above the alley, scanning. "Stay quiet," he whispered. From outside, a voice shouted, "Unit 6 reporting signal lost near this sector. Search every building." Elias's heart raced. He looked at the small girl hiding in his home, someone he met less than an hour ago. yet he already felt responsible for her. He took a deep breath and whispered, "It's okay, Leary, you're safe here." She looked up at him, her eyes shining through the darkness. "You promise?" He nodded. "I promise." Outside, the engines roared closer. Inside, a broken human and a lost alien child held their breath, as the night of New Vega filled with danger, and something new was born between them. As the night had grown colder, wind howled through the broken windows of nearby buildings, carrying the hum of approaching engines. Elias peered through the curtains, watching the red glow of hoverbikes sweep across the narrow street. They were close. Too close. Inside the small apartment, Leary hid behind the couch, clutching her blanket tightly. Her breathing was fast, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Elias turned off every light except one, a small blue maintenance lamp, and grabbed his toolkit again. The tracker still blinked faintly in the metal cup. It pulsed faster now, sending out its final signal. Elias frowned. "It's still alive," he muttered. He poured the liquid from an old power cell into the cup. The tracker sparked once, then burned out with a hiss. Smoke rose and the blinking stopped. But the sound of engines outside didn't fade. They were already locking on the area. Leary's voice trembled. "They're coming for me." Elias knelt beside her. "No, they're coming for the signal. I just need to make them think it's somewhere else." He opened the back wall panel. Behind it ran a tangle of old power lines and conduits. With quick, steady hands, he pulled a data wire and connected it to his personal wrist link. Sparks flickered. "What are you doing?" Leary whispered. "I'm feeding the tracker's last signal into the grid," he said, his voice low but calm. "It'll jump to the next substation. They'll chase ghosts." A loud thud echoed outside. Hoverbikes landed. Boots hit the ground. Through the thin walls, Elias heard metallic voices. "Target signal last detected here. Spread out. Scan every unit," Elias whispered. "Hide in the maintenance shaft." Leary hesitated, tears in her eyes. "I don't want to leave you." He looked at her, this small, scared child, half human, half alien, and something in him softened. "I'll be right here," he said. "Go, quietly." She crawled into the shaft, clutching her blanket. The metal door closed with a soft click, leaving only silence. Moments later, the door to the apartment burst open. Two armored figures stepped in, Dominion bounty hunters, tall and sharp like machines. Their armor shimmered silver and red. Their eyes glowed through their helmets. Elias raised his hands. "Hey, easy. What's going on?" "Signal detected from this building," one of them said, voice flat through the helmet's speaker. "We're tracking a fugitive subject, female, minor." Elias frowned. "A kid? You think I'm hiding a kid in here?" The taller hunter looked around. "Human male, approximately 40, engineer. Not our target." They scanned the room with a glowing sensor. For a second it beeped near the floor, right above where Leary was hiding. Elias's heart stopped. Before they could focus, he tapped his wrist link secretly. A loud electric surge blasted through the building. Lights flickered, sparks flew, and the sensor went dead. "Power fault." The first hunter barked. Elias pointed toward the window. "There, I saw something on the roof. Someone ran that way." Without checking, the hunters rushed out. Hoverbikes roared again, engines screaming as they shot down the street. Elias waited until the sound faded. Then he slowly opened the shaft door. "It's okay," he whispered. "They're gone." Leary crawled out, her small hands shaking. You tricked them?" He smiled tiredly. "Old engineer's trick. The power grid here is a mess. Easy to fool sensors if you know where to poke." She blinked, confused but amazed. "You're brave," she said softly. He laughed weakly. "No, just stubborn." Outside, thunder rolled. The storm returned, washing the blood and dust from the streets. Elias closed the door, sealed the lock, and sighed. "We can't stay here long," he said. "They'll come back." Leary looked down. "You could turn me in." "They'd pay you." Elias turned sharply toward her. "Don't ever say that again." Her eyes widened. "Why?" He sat down beside her, his expression serious. "Because I've seen what they do to kids like you. They don't need another prisoner. They need someone to care." For the first time, Leary smiled a little. "My mom used to say that, before they took her." Elias nodded quietly. "Your mother sounds like someone good." "She was," Leary whispered. "She said humans were kind once. She said one would come for me." Elias looked at her, unsure what to say. A strange warmth filled the room. like a memory of something long lost. Compassion, maybe even hope. Then suddenly, a small flicker appeared on the window, the reflection of a red dot. A surveillance drone. Elias froze. "Down!" he whispered. The drone hovered outside, scanning the glass. He grabbed an old plasma cutter and pointed it toward the ceiling. "Cover your ears," he said. He fired once, a flash of light, a bang, and the drone exploded in sparks. The shockwave made the lights go out completely. Smoke drifted through the room. Leary coughed. "Are we safe?" "For now," he said. He opened a hidden drawer and pulled out a dusty backpack. Inside were tools, batteries, and ration bars. "We're leaving tonight. The whole sector's going to be crawling with search units by morning. Where will we go?" she asked. Elias looked out the broken window. The city lights flickered below, endless towers, smoke, and rain. "Away from here," he said. "Somewhere they can't reach you." He turned back to her and added softly, "You're safe as long as you're with me. That's a promise." Leary looked at him for a long moment, her blue eyes glowing softly. "I believe you." As the rain kept falling outside, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in years, a reason to fight again. The signal might be gone, but the danger was only beginning. Somewhere in the shadows, the Dominion already knew who had taken their prize. And for the first time in a long time, Elias didn't care. He had made his choice. Dawn came slowly over the smog-filled sky of New Vega. The city lights dimmed one by one, but Elias had not slept. He sat by the window, watching rain slide down the cracked glass. His tools lay scattered across the table, old circuit boards, wires, a broken plasma knife. Leary slept curled up on the couch, her blanket wrapped around her small frame. Every few minutes she murmured softly, calling out for her mother in her sleep. Elias looked at her, and something inside him tightened. He had seen many broken machines in his life, though, but this was the first time he had seen a broken child. When she finally opened her eyes, she smiled weakly. "You didn't sleep," Elias shrugged. "Didn't feel like it." Her voice was small. "Are they still looking for me?" "Yes," he said honestly. "They'll search the whole sector. We need to leave the city before they reset the grid scanners." She nodded, then reached into her blanket and pulled out a small object, a faintly glowing crystal, smooth and transparent like frozen light. Elias blinked. "What's that?" She held it gently like something holy. "My mother's memory crystal," she whispered. "It holds her voice. Her memories." He leaned closer. "Can I see it?" Leary hesitated, but finally handed it over. The crystal pulsed with a soft blue light as he connected it to his handheld scanner. The old screen flickered. Static at first, then an image appeared. A woman's face formed in light, gentle features, same glowing blue eyes as Leary, but older, wiser. Her voice echoed softly in the room. "If you're seeing this, it means they found us. Leary, my love, listen to me. You are not a mistake. You are hope, a bridge between two worlds. The humans may fear you and the Dominion will hunt you, but someone kind will protect you. Trust them." Leary's hands trembled. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "That's her. That's my mom." Elias stayed silent, letting her cry. The hologram continued. Images flashed. Laboratories filled with glowing tubes, cages, humans and aliens in white coats arguing. The woman's voice grew fainter. "They used us for research, to create a species that could survive anywhere, heal faster, breathe any air. They called it Project Harmony. But it was never about peace. It was about control." Elias's stomach turned. "So that's what you are," he whispered. "Half human, half Ven," Leary nodded. "My mother said my blood could heal sickness. But the Dominion wanted to use it to make soldiers who don't die." The hologram flickered again. The woman looked straight into the lens, eyes full of sadness. "Run, my child, run far. Find someone who still remembers kindness." Then the image faded, leaving only silence and the faint hum of machines. Elias sat still, his mind spinning. The air in the room felt heavy. "Your mother. She was brave," he said softly. "She tried to stop them." Leary wiped her tears. "She said the same thing to you, didn't she?" He frowned. "To me?" "She said someone kind will protect you. That's you, Elias." He didn't know what to say. He looked at the small crystal glowing gently in his hand and felt the weight of that message settle deep inside him. But then, something else caught his eye. His scanner's light blinked red. He tapped the screen. A hidden data file had opened. It wasn't just memories. It was a medical log. He read it carefully. His face went pale. "What is it?" Leary asked. He hesitated before answering. "It's your genetic report. Leary, your body isn't stable. The fusion between human and Ven DNA, it's breaking down." She stared, confused. "I don't understand." "It means—" He paused, forcing the words out. "You're getting weaker. Your cells can't keep repairing forever. Without treatment, you could—" He stopped himself. Leary's voice was a whisper. "Die?" Elias nodded slowly. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The sound of distant thunder filled the silence. Leary looked at her hands, glowing faintly blue. "Then I really am broken," she said quietly. Elias leaned forward. "No, you're not. You're alive. That's what matters. Machines break, people. We fight." Her eyes met his. "But how long can I fight?" "As long as it takes," he said. He stood up and began packing tools into his bag. "We'll go to the old lab district. Maybe there's something left of her research. Maybe there's a cure." Leary watched him. "You'd do that for me?" Elias smiled faintly. "You remind me of someone I once knew. My sister. She died in the plague wars. No one helped her. I promised myself that if I ever had the chance again, I'd save someone." Leary's eyes softened. "Then maybe your promise brought you to me." He zipped the bag and looked around the room one last time. Outside, police drones were still circling the city towers, searching. He turned off the lights and lifted the small crystal. "Keep this close," he said. "Your mother's words might save us yet." As they stepped into the rainy alley, the wind carried the faint hum of the city's morning sirens. The streets were still wet, the air thick with metallic mist. Leary walked beside him, holding his hand tightly. Behind them, unseen through the rain, a small camera drone watched from the rooftops, its red lens recording everything. The Dominion had already traced the memory crystal's activation. A voice whispered through its comlink. "Target confirmed. Subject Leary alive. Send a patrol." The drone rose silently into the clouds. Elias and Leary disappeared into the shadows, unaware that the chase had begun again. Only this time, it wasn't about a lost child anymore. It was about the secret her blood carried, and the one human foolish enough to protect her. The rain had stopped, but the air over New Vega still smelled of metal and smoke. Dawn light broke weakly through the clouds, turning the tall towers into gray silhouettes. Elias and Leary had taken shelter in an abandoned machine shop near the edge of the city. Old metal parts hung from the ceiling, creaking when the wind moved. The floor was cold, covered in dust and oil stains. Elias worked quickly, setting up a small energy heater from spare batteries. The faint warmth filled the space. Leary sat nearby, holding the crystal close to her chest. She looked tired and pale, with small veins glowing faintly under her skin. Elias noticed it but said nothing. He knew the truth. Her condition was getting worse. "We'll rest here for a few hours," he said. "Then we move to the old labs. I still have a friend there, if he's alive." She nodded quietly, her eyes full of trust. But just as Elias started checking the door locks, a soft buzz came from his wrist link. He froze. It wasn't a message, it was a broadcast ping. The screen flickered. A voice spoke through the static. "Attention citizens of Sector 12. The Dominion Patrol is conducting a search for a fugitive alien child. Cooperation ensures your safety. Failure to report will result in charges." Elias cursed under his breath. "They're sweeping block by block." Leary's voice trembled. "Will they come here?" "They might." He looked around the dusty shop. "But they won't find you if you stay quiet." He guided her to a hidden compartment under the old workbench. It was narrow, but big enough for her to curl up in. "Stay here. Don't make a sound until I say so." She nodded, clutching her blanket. "Promise you won't leave me?" Elias smiled softly. "Not a chance." He shut the panel and walked back to the door. His pulse quickened when he saw movement outside, the shadow of a tall figure crossing the street. Then came the knock. Thud, thud, thud. Elias opened the door halfway. Yeah, 2 Dominion patrol officers stood there. Their armor gleamed white and silver, the helmets smooth like mirrors. Behind them floated a scanning drone, its red light sweeping across the street. "Good morning, citizen," the taller one said in a cold mechanical tone. "We're checking for a missing life form, female hybrid classification." Elias forced a lazy smile. "A hybrid? Don't think I've seen one around. I fix machines, not people." The second officer glanced past him into the dark room. "Your workshop is registered as inactive." You live here? Used to, Elias said. Still got a few old tools lying around. Easier to sleep here than in those government pods. The taller officer raised a hand, signaling the drone. Scan interior. The red light moved slowly over the walls, shelves, and floor. Elias stood still, his heart pounding. The drone's hum grew louder as it reached the workbench. Leary held her breath beneath it, then, beep. The drone stopped. The officer's visor glowed. Life form detected. Elias's mind raced. He coughed loudly and stepped in front of the drone. That'll be the heater, he said quickly. Old tech. Gives off a biosignal because it's powered by organic gel packs. I told you I fixed things, the officer looked doubtful. Show me. Elias smiled tightly. Sure. He walked to the heater, picked it up, and held it out. The red light scanned it, the bio reading spiked. The drone chirped, heat source detected. Organic trace confirmed. The officer nodded once. Proceed. Elias tried to act calm as they looked around a final time. One of them stopped near an old photo on the shelf. A younger Elias in uniform standing beside a human woman. Family? The officer asked. Used to be, Elias said quietly. Lost them during the plague years. For a brief moment there was silence. Even through the cold metal helmets, Elias could feel the weight of that memory pressing between them. Finally, the officer turned. We'll continue the sweep. They stepped outside. Elias closed the door slowly, his hands trembling. He waited until the hum of the drones faded away before exhaling. Then he opened the panel. It's okay, Leary, they're gone. She crawled out, her small face pale but smiling with relief. You fooled them again. Elias sank into a chair. Barely. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. They're getting smarter. The next patrol might scan deeper. Leary's eyes shimmered faintly. We can't keep running forever. He looked at her and sighed. No, we can't. That's why we need that lab. There's something in your mother's research that can help. Maybe fix what's happening to you. She tilted her head. You think my mother wanted you to find it too? Elias smiled faintly. I think your mother believed in people like me. People who still remember how to care. Outside, thunder rolled again and distant engines echoed, another patrol moving closer. Elias packed his tools, wrapped a cloak around Leary, and opened the back exit. They stepped into the alley where the smell of ozone hung in the air. Across the sky, huge airships floated like metal whales, projecting bright holograms urging citizens to report illegal refugees. Leary squeezed his hand. Why do they hate us? Elias looked up at the shining lights. Because they don't understand you, he said. And people fear what they don't understand. She lowered her head. Then maybe they'll never stop. He looked at her and smiled gently. Maybe not, but I will. They moved quickly through the narrow passages, blending into the fog and broken lights of the industrial sector. Unseen above them, another drone locked on their faint trail. A calm mechanical voice reported through static. Target reacquired. Proceed to intercept. As they disappeared into the shadows once again, Elias had no idea that the next place he was leading her to, the old research district, would not only reveal the truth about Leary's creation, but also the truth about himself. The old lab district of New Vega stood like a graveyard of glass and steel. Buildings once filled with scientists and bright lights now lay silent, covered in rust and vines. Signs flickered weakly. Harmony Biotech, Genetic Division, authorized personnel only. Elias and Leary reached the ruins just after sunset. The sky burned orange over the horizon, fading into violet clouds. A cold wind blew through broken windows carrying the smell of dust and chemicals. This place, Leary whispered, her small voice echoing in the empty street. It feels familiar. Elias nodded, scanning the area with his wrist link. It should. This is where your mother worked. They slipped inside a collapsed research wing. Holographic panels still blinked faintly, powered by old batteries. Papers covered the floor, torn blueprints, formulas, half-burned notes. On one wall, a slogan still glowed, Project Harmony, one blood, one future. Elias muttered, more like one lie. He guided Leary through the dark halls, careful not to make noise. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Water dripped from ceiling cracks, echoing through the long corridors. Finally, they reached a sealed door with a broken access pad. Leary touched it gently. Her fingers glowed blue and the lock blinked once before opening with a soft hiss. Elias blinked, You did that? She looked surprised too. I just touched it, he smiled slightly. Guess the system still recognizes you. Inside was a small laboratory, dusty but intact. Machines lined the walls, frozen mid-task. In the center stood a large glass chamber filled with blue liquid, and inside it a metal cradle shaped like a pod. Leary walked toward it slowly, her voice trembling. I remember this room. I used to sit right there while Mother worked. Elias touched the chamber's console. Let's see what secrets you're keeping. He powered it on. The old holographic system came to life with a flicker. Lines of data appeared. Genetic charts, DNA sequences, experiment logs. One file blinked red. Project Harmony, final stage. He opened it. A recording started. The same woman from the crystal appeared again, her holographic image flickering. Day 423 of Project Harmony. Subject 12, my daughter, remains stable for now. Human-Ven DNA fusion successful, but long-term balance uncertain. Without proper serum reinforcement, her cells may collapse. The Dominion wants immediate replication, but I refuse. She's not a weapon. She's a child. The image trembled as alarms blared in the background. Soldiers' voices shouted, Dr. Aaron, step away from the console. The woman turned, tears in her glowing eyes. If you hear this, run, Leary, run far. Trust no one from the Dominion. Find a human with a heart, not a badge. The hologram ended. Leary's hands shook. She knew they were coming. She knew everything. Elias looked at the chamber. Your mother tried to stop them, but the Dominion turned her research into weapons. They wanted soldiers who could heal, adapt, and obey. He walked to a side terminal. Inside an old storage drive, he found files labeled Serum Alpha Incomplete. His eyes widened as he read. This might be it, the cure. But half the data's corrupted. Leary leaned against the wall, weak. It hurts. Inside, she whispered. Elias rushed to her. Her veins glowed brighter, her breathing shallow. Stay with me, he said. We'll fix this, she smiled faintly. You're not like them, Elias. You look angry, but your hands are gentle. He swallowed hard. Don't talk like that. You're going to live, you hear me? Then from somewhere above came the low growl of an engine, the kind that made his stomach twist. A Dominion patrol ship, he cursed. They tracked us. He grabbed the crystal and stuffed it into his bag. The holographic lights flickered as the lab's external sensors detected movement. Red warnings flashed. Perimeter breach. Leary's eyes widened. They're here for me again. Elias loaded his plasma cutter and switched off the main power, plunging the lab into shadows. Then let's give them a welcome they won't forget. He moved quickly, rerouting wires to overload the generators. The machines began to hum. When they come through that door, this place will light up like a sun. Leary reached out, touching his hand. You'll get hurt, he smiled tightly. Better me than you. A metallic voice echoed through the halls. Elias Ward, you are harboring Dominion property. Surrender the child and you may live. Elias looked toward the door. Property, he muttered. She's not property. The door exploded inward. Soldiers in black armor stormed through, weapons raised. Blue laser sights filled the room. Get down, Elias shouted. He slammed a switch. Electric arcs shot through the machines. Sparks flew across the floor. The soldiers stumbled as lights flared, blinding them. Elias fired his plasma cutter, hitting the nearest console. The explosion sent them diving for cover. Run, Leary, he yelled. She hesitated, looking back at him. Her eyes glowed fiercely. Not without you. Another explosion shook the building. The ceiling cracked, metal raining down. Elias grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the emergency tunnel at the back. They ran through smoke and fire, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Behind them, the lab began to collapse. As they reached the exit, Leary looked back one last time. The blue chamber shattered, sending a wave of glowing liquid across the floor, like her mother's last memory fading away. Outside, under the blood-red sky, the sound of sirens and burning metal filled the air. Elias held Leary close as they stumbled into the wastelands beyond the city walls. She whispered weakly, Mother said there's always a dawn after the dark. He looked down at her, his jaw tight. Then we'll live long enough to see it. Far behind them, the ruins of Project Harmony burned like a dying star, and above, the Dominion captain watched from his ship, eyes cold as glass. Begin full pursuit, he ordered. No one hides forever. The wasteland beyond New Vega stretched for miles, an endless sea of red sand and broken rock, glowing under a sun that burned like fire. Once it had been farmland before the war scorched it into silence. Now, it was nothing but ruins and wind. Elias and Leary stumbled through the barren land, their faces hidden under torn hoods. Behind them, black smoke rose where the lab had once stood. The Dominion would not stop. He knew that. They would hunt until either the child or he was gone. Leary's small hand held tightly to his. Each step she took looked heavier than the last. Her pale blue skin had lost much of its glow. The serum her mother created was gone, and her body was fighting to survive without it. Elias stopped beside a cracked water pipe sticking from the sand. He used his tools to draw a few drops of clean liquid and filled his small bottle. Leary tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "Drink slowly," he said, passing it to her. She nodded, sipping weakly. "You don't drink?" He smiled faintly. "Old soldiers can last longer than they should." "Then you were a soldier?" she asked softly. He hesitated, eyes on the horizon. "A long time ago. Before I learned that sometimes fighting isn't the same as protecting." She tilted her head. "You're protecting me." Elias looked at her, a flicker of warmth breaking through the dust and fatigue. "Yeah," he whispered. "Guess I am." Suddenly, a high-pitched whine cut through the still air. Elias froze. He knew that sound, hover engines. He pushed Leary behind a sand dune and scanned the sky. 3 black Dominion drones swooped low, their red sensors flashing like angry eyes. He grabbed his plasma cutter, reprogrammed for combat, and crouched beside Leary. "Stay down. Don't move unless I tell you." The drones circled, scanning the desert. One locked onto their heat signature. A red targeting beam swept across the sand. Elias cursed under his breath and fired. The beam from his cutter hit the nearest drone, slicing through its wing. It spiraled into the ground, exploding in a flash of light and sand. The other 2 reacted instantly, firing energy bolts. One blast struck the ground beside him, throwing him backward. Leary screamed and ran toward him. "Elias!" He coughed, sand in his mouth, his arm bleeding. "Stay back," he shouted, trying to stand. But the drones were fast. One swooped down, aiming straight for the girl. Leary lifted her hands in terror, her eyes glowing bright blue. A sudden pulse of energy erupted from her palms, pure light that cracked the air like thunder. The drone froze midair, systems failing before crashing into the dunes in flames. Elias stared in shock. "Leary, what did you just do?" She looked at her hands, trembling. I don't know. It just happened. I didn't want it to hurt you." Before he could respond, the last drone fired a direct shot. Elias turned and shielded her, but the blast struck his side. He fell hard, pain spreading through his chest. Smoke rose from his jacket. "Elias!" Leary cried, kneeling beside him. Her tears glowed as they hit his skin. She placed her small hands over his wound. "Please, don't die." Then something miraculous happened. The faint blue light from her hands sank into his flesh. The burn began to close. The bleeding stopped. The pain faded. Elias gasped, sitting up slowly. He touched his chest, stunned. "You healed me." Leary looked drained, her glow dimming. "It takes energy," she whispered. "I can give life, but it takes mine." He stared at her, horrified and amazed all at once. "You can't do that again. Do you understand? Not for me. Not for anyone," she smiled weakly. "You saved me first." Before he could answer, a low rumble echoed through the desert. A massive ship appeared on the horizon, the Dominion transport sweeping the area with blue searchlights. "They found us," Elias said grimly. He helped her stand. "We need to reach the canyon. The signal won't work there." They ran through the dunes, the heat burning their lungs. The ship's lights grew brighter, its engines shaking the ground. Sandstorm winds whipped around them, blinding their path. "Elias!" Leary shouted, her voice almost lost in the wind. "Why don't you give up?" He grabbed her hand tighter, pulling her forward. "Because if I stop now, they win, and your mother's death means nothing." They slid down a steep dune and into a dry canyon filled with old mining equipment. Elias found an abandoned crawler vehicle, its metal body half buried in dust. He jumped in and started rewiring the ignition. Come on. The engines coughed, then roared to life. The crawler's turbine spun, kicking up a cloud of sand. "Hold on," he shouted. Leary clung to him as the machine sped forward through the canyon. Behind them, the Dominion ship fired, giant plasma bolts striking the rocks, sending shards flying. The crawler swerved, barely missing a falling boulder. One bolt hit the ground beside them, flipping the machine sideways. Elias threw himself over Leary as they crashed. Metal screamed, sand erupted. For a moment everything was quiet except the crackle of flames. Elias groaned, pushing himself up. The crawler was wrecked. Leary lay unconscious beside him, her glow flickering weakly. He picked her up gently, carrying her through the smoke. In the distance he saw the mouth of a cave, a narrow crack in the canyon wall. He stumbled toward it. Inside, the air was cool and still. He laid her down carefully and tore part of his jacket to cover her. She stirred slightly, whispering, "You're bleeding again." He smiled faintly. "I'll live." Then she reached up weakly, touching his cheek. "You always say that." He brushed her glowing hair back. "And I always mean it." Outside, the searchlights passed over the canyon, but the cave stayed hidden. For now, they were safe. Elias sat beside her, listening to her breathing, steady but fragile. He looked out at the desert, eyes hard. "They won't stop, Leary," he whispered. "But neither will I." He didn't see the small drone hidden on the ship above, transmitting a silent signal. Subject located. Alive. Human accomplice confirmed. The chase wasn't over. It had just entered its final act. The cave was silent except for the sound of Leary's shallow breathing. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying the distant roar of Dominion engines searching the sands. The air smelled of smoke, metal, and dust. Elias sat beside her, watching the faint blue glow that pulsed weakly beneath her skin. He had wrapped his arm around her small frame, trying to keep her warm. Her eyes fluttered open, tired but soft. "You didn't sleep again," she whispered. Elias smiled faintly. "Didn't want to. Someone has to keep watch." She tried to sit up, but her body trembled. "They'll find us soon." "I know," he said quietly. "But I think I know how to end this." From his bag he pulled the cracked crystal, her mother's memory core. It still flickered weakly, light dancing across the cave walls. "There's something inside it we missed," he said. "A code. Your mother left an override command, one that can rewrite Dominion systems." Leary's eyes widened. "Rewrite? Like control them?" "Exactly. If we can reach their main satellite relay, we can broadcast that code across their network. Every record, every bounty, every command to hunt you, and gone." She shook her head weakly. "That's impossible." He smiled, eyes hard. "Maybe, but your mother believed in impossible things." "I think I do too." Before Leary could reply, the ground trembled. The cave wall shook, dust raining down. A deep mechanical hum filled the air, the sound of Dominion hovercrafts landing nearby. Elias cursed under his breath. "They're here." He helped Leary stand. She could barely walk, so he lifted her in his arms. "Hold on, kid. We're not dying in a hole." They ran through the narrow tunnels, the glow from her skin lighting the way. Behind them, metal footsteps echoed. Soldiers entering the cave, weapons drawn. When they reached the exit, sunlight burst across the sand, harsh and white. On the horizon, a massive Dominion command ship loomed like a floating fortress, black against the sun. Leary clutched his jacket. "They'll kill you, Elias." He looked down at her, smiling softly. "Not before I finish what your mother started." They climbed up the last ridge. From there he could see the command tower at the ship's center, its communication dish spinning slowly. He took a deep breath. "If I can reach that dish, I can upload the override." Leary stared at him, her blue eyes full of fear. "You can't make it alone," he hesitated. "Then I guess I'm not alone." Before he could say more, a shadow fell across them. A transport craft landing on the ridge above. The sand whipped in all directions. From it stepped the Dominion captain, tall, armored, his silver eyes cold as a blade. "Elias Ward," the captain said, voice sharp and hollow through his mask. "You have caused enough trouble. Hand over the specimen and your death will be quick." Elias placed Leary gently behind him. "Her name is Leary," he said. "And you'll never touch her again." The captain tilted his head. "You think you can stop us?" Elias aimed his plasma cutter at the ship's power cell. "No, but I can slow you down." The captain moved faster than expected, a blur of metal and rage. The plasma cutter was kicked from Elias's hand and he was thrown to the ground. The captain's boot pressed against his chest. "You humans never learn," the captain hissed. "Always trying to protect what is already broken." Leary's faint voice rose behind him. "You're wrong." The captain turned, whined, and froze. The girl's body glowed brighter than before, her veins burning with blue fire. The air around her shimmered like heat. "Stop," Elias shouted. "You'll kill yourself." But Leary stepped forward, her small feet leaving glowing marks in the sand. "You want your perfect weapon?" she whispered, voice shaking but strong. "Then here it is." The captain raised his blaster, but before he could fire, a wave of pure light burst from Leary's hands. The beam hit his armor, cracking it apart. Energy rippled through the air, bending the dunes, shaking the ship. Elias shielded his eyes as sand and wind roared around them. The captain screamed as his armor melted into ash. The entire command relay flickered, systems shorting out from the surge. When the light finally faded, Leary collapsed into the sand, barely breathing. Elias ran to her, lifting her in his arms. "Leary, stay with me!" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I had to. I saw her, Elias, my mother." She said it was time to finish it. Tears blurred his vision. "You can't leave me, do you hear? You can't." She smiled faintly, her hand weakly touching his face. "You said I could stay forever." He choked on his words. "You can. You will." But then something incredible happened. The shattered memory crystal in his pocket began to glow. It pulsed in rhythm with Leary's heartbeat. Data streams appeared in the air, merging with her fading energy. The override code, her mother's legacy, transferred into her body, rewriting her cells, stabilizing her hybrid form. The blue glow steadied. Her breathing grew stronger. The light dimmed, leaving only a soft shimmer across her skin. Elias stared in disbelief. "You're alive." She opened her eyes, bright and calm. "She saved me again." Above them, the Dominion ship's engines sputtered and died. Across the network, the override had spread, erasing all data tied to Project Harmony, deleting every bounty, every hunt order. The Dominion's control fractured. Elias looked at the rising sun. "It's over." Leary leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering, "Then what now?" He smiled, standing with her in his arms as the morning light washed over them. "Now, we live, together." Her small fingers tightened around his jacket. "Forever." He looked down at her, eyes soft. "Forever." As they walked toward the horizon, the desert wind carried away the smoke and the echoes of war. For the first time in years, New Vega's sun rose on peace, born not from conquest, but from the kindness of one human who refused to stop caring. And in that moment, under the endless sky, a new future began. One where a lost alien child and a broken human engineer could finally call each other family.